Hello, welcome. We have another video that is going to be following up the one on change, transition, and transformation. Not in direct correlation exactly, but it's gonna cover some of those bases as well. So this video, we're going to be talking about next leveling. So I use the term next leveling pretty often and have used it for years when I am working with the concept of ascension and our divine blueprint and our ability through our self-will to align our will with divine will. To speak and communicate with our divine technology, to work with our highest selves and our soul presencing, and to co-create with the divine. So I usually use co-creation, as you might know, more than I do manifestation. I really love making that designation that from my perspective, we're always aligning our will with divine will. This unification and this empowerment comes forth in the throat chakra. So our throat chakra really begins to represent my will, my egoic will, right? My personality will, my attachments, right? My thought forms, my ideas, right? The me, my, mine, and the divine will, the soul guidance, the heart informing us, right? So our heart center connected with our soul, guiding us through that divine connection and aligning our actions, our thoughts, our behaviors to align with the deeper will, the higher will. And when we begin to get in the habit of doing this and speaking to our wholeness, which is our highest selves, which is our divine blueprint, right? That we can activate, that we can communicate with through a grounded, anchored space in connection with our soul. So that's the whole meal deal, right? That we get to work with. And it's that recognition that life with the capital L is always working to guide us and support us and to call us forward. Life, in my perspective, is also an expression of the divine, of God, of source wisdom and love. When life is inviting us into our next level, we will get an intuitive knowing, so to speak, right? It's relationship. It always comes down to this relational intimacy. And working from the perspective and the knowing that we are interconnected through this body to our technology into our fuller, wholer holiness, right? Our divinity that does encompass our personality and the ego construct. It all is working in tandem when we align continuously. So divinely aligning is another term I use a lot. Divinely align me into my next level trajectory. our ascension journey is always inviting us into next levels of expansion, of deepening, of change, transition, and transformation in order to remember us home to who we truly are. So next leveling in and of itself is really just saying yes, right? It's really just a conscious connection with, yes, I am ready now to go through another phase and stage of change, transition, and or transformation. Now, depending on your blueprint, like I said in the last video, depending on, your incarnation, whether you've got a family, whether you're in partnership, whether you're single, what your mission is here for, your blueprint is going to be configured for you because it is a part of you. It is an expansion of you. It is an extension of you. It is who we truly are, right? And we're simply just an expression of it is really more accurate. So when we start working with our next leveling can either be action-oriented, right? Like, all right, I am now ready to move into this expression that is being given to me from my soul, right? My soul is ready now to experience A, B, C, or D. It doesn't come from the head. It doesn't come from, it seems like it's the logical thing to do. It comes from inside of us. And it doesn't always communicate linearly, logically, or clearly. But there is an impulse for things to change. Something needs to change. And normally, in the earlier stages, we feel it more so as something isn't working. Something is out of balance, out of sync. Something is creating maybe, distraction, pain, or suffering in our life. From the early stages, we're motivated by pain and suffering or things feeling not good. As we evolve, we're motivated from knowing that we're here for more joy, right? More co-creation, more wholeness, more peace, more celebration. And it's a journey from one paradigm to this next paradigm. But our personal permission, we could say, is something that it requires. The universe requires our consent. So when we're feeling a rumbling or a pull towards, okay, let's go back to the last video. We went through change, transformation, or change, transition, and transformation. But let's look at an example of transformation, because I didn't do that. I talked about the imaginal cells. I talked about the caterpillar turning into the butterfly and how the DNA in that caterpillar holds these imaginal cells, and that our junk DNA basically embodies these very similar codes that are already in us. We just need to activate them and say yes and turn them on. And that's what the next leveling, in essence, is doing. So let's say, for instance, right, we went from a job as like an entry-level employee to a management position, right, through transition and that kind of change. Now let's say that we've been in our career for, a decade, 2 decades, and it's not working anymore. And inside, we're feeling restless, we're feeling agitated. We've tried all sorts of things to soothe, right, this inner upset. But life and our soul is now amplifying, it is time. You can no longer stay in your old life, in your own personhood expression, in your old habits or beliefs, in your old relationships, friendships, right? The things that you used to do to have fun, to bring joy into your life are no longer working. These are the shout outs for transformation. And so at some point, there's often a tipping point. And for many people, this is the beginning of your awakening journey. There's a tipping point to where the bud cannot stay tight any longer. Something has to change, and you cannot stop it anymore. Those imaginal cells, right? That junk DNA, those new codes for your evolution are starting to turn on. That's when you have to take a leap into a complete next level. These next levels are often unknown. We don't know what they are. We don't know how they're going to turn out. We don't know what that next level is going to ask of us. So that's in more of that extreme, I don't even want to say extreme. That's in those initiatory processes where we're next leveling, but we're not even really giving the consent, but we sort of give consent by default because we can't keep doing it, so we have to let go. So there's actioning next leveling, and then there's surrendering next leveling, where we finally are so exhausted from whatever we're trying to cling onto that we can't hold it together anymore, right? We can't maintain what was. And so we let go. We collapse. We, maybe life, we end up getting fired. We end up getting laid off. There's a calamity that happens. And the only choice that we have is to release any idea of control that we have and go through a death process. And if we hold tight during that, or if we have guidance, or if we have support, or if we start exploring, right? Dark night of the soul, for instance, you're going to find that you're not alone and that this is actually a good thing. This is the precipice of our spiritual awakening. And then a whole new life and a whole new journey opens up. And it comes oftentimes with a lot of loss, a lot of grief, having to deal with fear of the unknown, and having to latch on to a faith and trust that maybe we never had before. So that's a big initiation into next leveling. As we move along our journey and we go through these places of change and transformation, right? And it's gonna, how quick it is, how deep it is, how extreme it is, that's going to be governed by your karma, by your ability to let go, by your blueprint, and by your willingness really to say yes to this journey. It's living the mystery, right? Our ascension and our awakening process is really that we are walking the living mystery of the cosmos, of God, of life, down into this plane through our sacred technology, and we're walking it and anchoring it. And when we do that, we are bringing more of our truth home into this body, and it will start to transform our personality, our thought forms, our belief systems, and transmute our darkness and our pain and our suffering into freedom and joy and celebration. This can, this takes years for most of us, but it's faster now. So once we kind of have gotten in the flow of this, right? Once you've established maybe a meditation practice or whatever spiritual practice, you've been reading spiritual information, you've been listening to people talk about their journeys, you've been resonating, you've been getting aha moments, you're starting to tap into more signs and synchronicities, right? Magic and miracles are starting to appear. Things start to align out of nowhere. Maybe you start to get in touch with your guides. Maybe you have found a spiritual teacher. Maybe you start to see sequences of numbers that are showing up, confirming you're on the right track. So as all of this starts to happen, we then start to recognize that we are these powerful creator beings, that we are not just what we think, and we start to strengthen our relationship, our creative relationship with the universe. And we're able to start listening inside and recognizing what we're being called towards. Now, there is manifestation, right? There is like power of thought, power of alignment, power of frequency, emotions, and that's accurate, and that's a part of this process. But like most things, I take it from living from the inside out rather than the outside in. And so whatever we're frequencying inside of us is what is going to be mirrored back. So we get to call forth from our own divinity, which is our highest selves. Our highest selves are aspects of our soul, that we are gradually embodying that consciousness and those energetics into this physicality and expanding our soul presence. So I talk more about soul presencing, all of that. You can go back in the library and see some of that. Next leveling is us stepping in the game consciously, knowing that my spiritual development, my spiritual awakening process, my coming into my divinity is my purpose. That is my purpose. Now, what I do for my service is different than our purpose, right? So from a spiritual embodiment perspective, our purpose is to evolve. That is to transform. Because we are here to do just that. From this perspective, we aren't necessarily here to live within the old paradigm, which we've talked about before, which is staying pretty much in the physical world, the mundane existence. We're taking the mundane, we're infusing it with consciousness, presence, and sacredness. And then we're up-leveling from the sacred into the divine, because then we start stepping in as our divinity, as we transmute our lower base level, mere humans qualities into our divine qualities. And we get to say, okay, yes, what is my highest next level trajectory of my ascension process, of my evolution process, of my spiritual awakening, of my soul presencing, however you like to frame it. And when we start calling that in, we're communicating with our divine blueprint. We're communicating with the divine. We're communicating with all of our guides. We're communicating with our highest selves. And we're saying, let's go. I'm ready. I'm ready for the next phase and stage of change, of transformation. Now, when we develop a lot of faith and trust, that's all we need to say. We don't need to know. We don't need to figure it out where we're going. We move into stages of developing complete faith and trust in the divine and in our soul. That's it. And we divinely align, and that is how we live our life. In the interim, when we are co-creating, or if we feel the moments when we feel like we're ready to co-create. So a couple videos ago, I talked about my trajectory over this last year. I could sense and feel what my soul was communicating to me, and what I was being guided to call forth, to co-create with. And it was specific frequencies, right? Peaceful, easy feeling. I want a brand new life. Brand new life. I'm ready to completely shed everything I've known. And as it turns out, I've completely pretty much let go of everything from my last, let's say 25 years. Leaving it behind. And so I set forth, I am ready to leave all of this behind. And here's what I want my brand new life to feel like, because here's what my soul is longing for. Peaceful, easy feeling, harmony, right? Deep peace and harmony. And financial world maturation. And this whole year has been a transition of many changes that culminated into points of massive transformation where I had to rebirth, and now here I am, right? So I co-created, I set out the frequencies. So what we want to do, because the frequencies are consciousness, so when we get used to listening inside to our heart and our soul, to listening to that truer essence communication, we can then give permission. We can ask. We can activate our divine blueprint. And then we are in this relational intimacy with life. We are able to next level as often as we feel called. And we can next level through either that action or deep surrender, right? So this next stage of this phase for me is surrendering into receiving, into deeply receiving everything that has landed and everything that has been activated so that I can integrate it, so that it can do its deeper internal, the finale of my this go round transmutation and rebirthing into new qualities, into new states of being, into new thought forms, into new emotional configurations, into a more expansive, grounded soul presencing. So next leveling is the process, just the terminology of the process that I use that grows us. Not because anything is bad or wrong or broken, but because at this point in time on our planet, we are here to move into consistent new levels of remembering who we are. And there is not an end of that in sight for a while. So everybody gets to choose for themselves, right, how they want to do this journey. This is how I guide those who are called to do this journey, to make it conscious, to make it sacred, to make it, to deepen it, to embody it, and to be up-leveling consistently, ongoingly. And that doesn't mean like every day, right? Something new. But it could mean every couple months you're moving, you're growing, you're changing, you're stretching, you're expanding, you're becoming more peace, more joy, more love, right? You're learning new things. You might move like I'm kind of doing right now from, teaching one method or methods to support as your service into a whole other place of service. Because as we shift and change and transform, what we offer expands and deepens as well. Right? So if I look back to starting to do my work of service back to 2003, I've gone through many iterations of what I'm here to share. And yet, the beauty of it is, right, over time, as any kind of practitioner or teacher that you might be, those things don't fall away. They just get integrated and expanded in their wisdom and deepened in higher truths that are able to continue to download and to expand the body of work. But the focal point might shift and be different. So next leveling is always an option for us. And it is a suggested invitation of life, because we are sovereign beings. We are becoming more and more sovereign. And when I say sovereign, we are becoming unto ourselves more deeply connected to divine source from within. And as we do that, we are the ones that give consent and give permission, if we so choose. So I think that might be it. Invitation for you. We looked at change, transition, and transformation, each of those. So what would next leveling be for you, right? Where has your life just sort of been in a consistent status quo that might not really be working, or that you're here for something more, right? You're here to grow into something more. I don't want to say better, because it's not necessarily better. It's just a next leveling of who we already are. What in your life is ready to next level? Is there a vocation that you're wanting to step into to learn? Right? Is there a spiritual practice? Is there your own inner personal development? Is it coming more deeply into more relational intimacy with, people in your life? Is it learning how to communicate in new ways? And then all of that still comes from within us. Is there a deepening of connection that you want to have with Divine Source? Is there deeper healing that you know that you need to do, but you just kind of keep putting it off, right? All of these things are next leveling. They're saying, yes, I'm ready to learn more, grow more, expand more, celebrate more, live more fully, live more connectedly. A little bird out at my little bath out there. So, all right, until next time. I hope this supported you. If it did, thanks for subscribing. More to come. Be well. Much love.